This research originates from the specialized findings of Danny Kessler, Korea's first PhD in wellness tourism. Contemporary commercial tourism is built on a specific operational model, engineering memorable, friction-free environments designed to maximize consumer comfort. This approach elevates standard hospitality beyond basic service delivery, transforming a simple transaction into a highly curated, consumer-centric experience. However, a stark divergence emerges when attempting to apply this consumer-first logic to millennia-old ascetic practices. Friction emerges because asceticism demands effort and discomfort, variables that standard commercial models actively try to eliminate. This represents a structural incompatibility between the goals of renunciation and the mechanics of modern service delivery. When administrators attempt to smooth over this discomfort to satisfy modern tourists, the original value of the practice degrades. The friction is not a temporary management hurdle, but a result of competing fundamental objectives. Applying standard hospitality engineering to rigorous asceticism creates a paradox. Conventional management theories struggle with a context where the primary consumer product is the absence of luxury. Traditional monastic environments were not constructed for hospitality. They were meticulously engineered for spiritual discipline and rigorous self-denial. The architecture of these spaces was built to reject consumer satisfaction. Every stone and schedule was designed to challenge the occupant, not appease them. Renunciation manifests physically. It involves early awakenings, exposure to the elements, and rhythmic physical labor, all demanding strict psychological endurance. The modern tourist arrives with an entirely different psychological baseline. They expect hedonic engagement, seeking environments that provide relaxation and continuous sensory comfort. Place these modern hedonic expectations against the historical baseline of austerity, and the conflict becomes absolute. The visitor seeks rest. The environment demands work. For tourism administrators, this contradiction creates a complex operational puzzle. They must manage visitor satisfaction without compromising the demanding nature of the site itself. The stakes are cultural and financial. Over-commercialize, and authenticity is lost. Under-accommodate, and you lose the audience. Reconciling the demand for hedonic pleasure with austere spaces means abandoning traditional hospitality assumptions. It requires adopting a specialized economic model tailored for environments of discipline. To navigate this, researchers look to extant studies regarding the experience economy in non-traditional spaces. A 2015 academic analysis conducted by Song and colleagues provides a functional model. They analyzed how the 4E framework functions within these exact environments. The first pillar is entertainment. Outside of standard commercial venues, this refers to the passive, engaging sensory input the environment naturally provides. The second pillar, education, measures cognitive engagement. It requires the participant to actively absorb new skills or conceptual frameworks. Escape, the third pillar, focuses on psychological detachment. It tracks how effectively the environment separates the participant from their daily baseline reality. Finally, aesthetics measures the impact of the physical environment on immersion, accounting for the architecture and atmosphere that encase the participant. This diagram shows how these four elements intersect to form a comprehensive experiential architecture, allowing administrators to map exactly where value is generated. When we isolate the specific quadrants for escape and entertainment, a clear pattern emerges within aesthetic environments. The research indicates that perceived escape, when combined with even mild entertainment, yields the highest overall value for the participant. The 4E framework provides a mechanism to categorize experiential architecture in spaces that lack traditional commercial entertainment. In heritage tourism, utilitarian value refers to the practical takeaways for the participant, the tangible knowledge gained or the routines learned. Hedonic value tracks emotional resonance. It measures the peace and psychological satisfaction derived from the experience itself. A common industry assumption suggests that introducing physical rigor and discomfort reduces a participant's hedonic satisfaction. The operational reality directly contradicts this assumption. Rigorous physical asceticism actually maintains exceptionally high value metrics across both categories. This chart compares the yields of standard relaxation programming against rigorous ascetic programming. The metrics for perceived escape, alongside utilitarian and hedonic value, remain high regardless of the physical strain involved. The mechanism driving this is focus. Physical labor demands total presence, which generates deep psychological escapism from outside anxieties. Mandated physical discipline forces the mind to align with the immediate task, directly reducing contemporary mental fatigue. In heritage sites, peak consumer satisfaction is driven by the psychological escape facilitated by strict discipline. This confirms that value can be systematically generated even when physical friction remains high. These findings require administrators to undergo a recalibration of regenerative tourism management. Success depends on establishing a structural equilibrium within active heritage sites. The demanding aspects of the site must balance with the restorative ones. On one side of this balance are structured educational interventions. These are mandatory, rule-bound practices that participants must follow. Focused walking meditation serves as a prime example. It is a rigid, step-by-step process that demands total concentration. By requiring participants to adhere to these interventions, the programming builds measurable cognitive resilience, training the mind to sustain focus. On the other side is the psychological function of the aesthetic environment itself, the silent architecture and the natural landscape. Deep immersion in these stark aesthetic environments facilitates emotional restoration, allowing participants to process the mental strain of the discipline. The primary operational objective is to deliver these high-value cognitive and emotional experiences without compromising the authentic sanctity of the heritage site. Ensuring the long-term viability of these cultural assets requires moving beyond generic tourism management. It requires the deployment of precision operational strategies, mapping experiential data directly onto historical preservation efforts. This begins with architecting modular programming for visitor management, designing experiences as interlocking, interchangeable components. These components must then be organized into tiered programming, separating baseline introductory visitors from those engaging in high-intensity asceticism. This architecture accommodates the modern demand for escapism because it allows participants to engage at a depth that matches their psychological capacity. However, this flexibility must be paired with strict, uncompromising enforcement protocols regarding site preservation. By confining high-traffic engagement to specific tiers, administrators can insulate the site's core educational integrity and preserve its environmental aesthetics. Implementing modular, data-driven programming provides a functional path to satisfy contemporary psychological demands without compromising the integrity of the cultural asset. Financial and operational administrators are encouraged to view austerity as a driver of, rather than a barrier to, consumer satisfaction. Utilizing the 4E framework systematically allows institutions to curate high-value experiences while protecting their cultural foundations. This insight is grounded in the research of Danny Kessler, Associate Professor and Korea's first PhD in wellness tourism.